Welcome to our deep dive into why immigrant and refugee communities cluster in specific American cities. In this video, we will unpack the commonly misunderstood idea that these settlement patterns are random. Instead, we will show how initial resettlement policy, economic opportunity, and chain migration interact to shape where communities grow. To keep this journey clear and engaging, we will proceed step by step, connect each idea with smooth transitions, and use diagrams to visualize the forces at work. Now, let's begin by previewing what we'll cover. Here is our roadmap. First, we will define what drives clustering. Next, we will examine initial resettlement policy. Then, we will explore the economic magnet of jobs. After that, we will discuss chain migration and social infrastructure. We will also compare the benefits and concerns around ethnic enclaves. Moving forward, we will look at historical echoes from earlier waves of immigration. Then, we will highlight how policy and community organizations work together. Finally, we will end with key takeaways and a couple of quick quizzes to test your understanding. Before we proceed, an important disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes and aims to explain social patterns and policies without advocating for any specific political position. Examples are illustrative and not exhaustive. Individual experiences vary widely across states, cities, and neighborhoods. We encourage respectful dialogue and an appreciation for nuance throughout this topic. With that context in mind, let's transition into the core drivers of clustering. Clustering is not random. Communities tend to form where three forces intersect: policy decisions that determine initial placement, economic opportunities that sustain livelihoods, and social support that enables navigation of daily life. These forces create stable anchors for newcomers and amplify over time. To understand how this begins, let's start with the role of initial resettlement policy. First, initial resettlement policy shapes where many refugees arrive. Through official programs, refugees usually do not choose their first U.S. destination. Instead, government agencies and partner organizations place families where job availability, affordable housing, and local social infrastructure can support them. Minnesota and Michigan were early, willing recipients of refugees, including Somalis in the Twin Cities and various Arab communities in the Detroit area. These placements created foundational communities. It was not about seeking out cold weather. It was about being accepted and supported in places that had the capacity to help. Now that initial placement sets the stage, let's see how economic forces reinforce these settlements. This flowchart traces the path from push factors, such as conflict and trauma, into the U.S. refugee admission system. Then, resettlement agencies assess placement criteria, including job availability, affordable housing, and local capacity. That leads to initial city placements in places like Minnesota and Michigan. From there, a foundational community forms. As economic opportunities and social infrastructure stabilize, subsequent arrivals are drawn to the same areas, closing the loop. The feedback cycle shows how initial placement, once established, becomes self-reinforcing over time. Next, once a foundational community exists, the labor market becomes a strong magnet. Entry-level jobs that do not require advanced English or formal credentials are crucial. In the Twin Cities, agriculture, meatpacking, and food processing have historically provided these openings. In Dearborn and the broader Detroit area, the automotive sector and industrial supply chains have long offered accessible employment. Proximity to work, combined with community-run businesses that meet cultural needs, accelerates growth. As jobs connect with established social networks, newcomers can more quickly find leads, training, and stable income. With economics in place, social infrastructure further amplifies the pull. Let's turn to that next. This table summarizes two illustrative examples. In Minneapolis and St. Paul, early acceptance of refugees combined with entry-level jobs in agriculture, meatpacking, and food processing created a strong base. The infrastructure, such as mosques, community centers, and markets, provided vital services. In Dearborn and the Detroit area, a long-standing Arab American community intersected with supportive policies and industrial employment, especially in automotive and supply chains. Religious centers, ethnic markets, and cultural organizations further reinforced daily life. Now, to check your understanding, let's pause for a short quiz. Quiz time. What most often determines the initial U.S. city where refugees are placed? Option A, initial resettlement policy and agency placement. Option B, personal preference for climate. Option C, pure chance. Option D, viral social media recommendations. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is A. Initial city placement is guided by resettlement policy and agency decisions, which weigh factors like job availability, affordable housing, and local support capacity. This structure helps match needs with resources for arriving families. Now, building on that, let's delve into the social networks that keep communities growing. Now, chain migration and social infrastructure become the unstoppable force. Living near compatriots offers language support, cultural familiarity, and trusted guidance for navigating schools, healthcare, and public services. Religious centers, ethnic markets, and mutual aid organizations reduce friction during the hardest months of adjustment. For those arriving with limited English proficiency or carrying trauma, proximity to trusted networks is a survival mechanism. As relatives and friends share housing leads and job referrals, more people choose the same neighborhoods. This pattern is not new. It echoes throughout U.S. history. Before we trace that history, let's visualize the newcomer journey within a supportive enclave. This journey diagram shows stages many newcomers experience. Upon arrival, families move from temporary housing to caseworker support. As job searches begin, language classes and childcare help build capacity. Community connections, faith centers, and markets ease daily life and expand trusted networks. With stable housing and growing skills, families gain confidence and mobility. The emotional arc improves, from anxious to hopeful to confident, illustrating how social infrastructure and economic opportunity work together. Now that we have the social dimension, let's compare the benefits and concerns often raised about enclaves. On the benefits side, enclaves act as bridges to jobs and housing, create cultural and language safety nets, stimulate entrepreneurship, and mobilize efficient informal welfare through community networks. These can provide a pathway to gradual integration. On the concern side, there can be risks of social isolation or slower English acquisition, persistent stigma and misconceptions, uneven access to citywide resources, strain on local services when underfunded, and housing pressures in tight markets. The reality is nuanced. Effective policy and community partnerships can mitigate concerns while preserving benefits. Speaking of nuance, let's dispel the myth that climate drives settlement choices. A common question is why communities settle in cold places like Minnesota. The answer is that acceptance, support, and opportunity outweigh climate. Job access and social networks matter more than temperature. Families endure harsh winters because those regions offer stability, dignity, and a workable path forward. These are strategic, not accidental, choices shaped by policy and community capacity. With that clarified, let's quantify the major drivers of clustering with a simple visual breakdown. This pie chart provides an approximate sense of relative influence. Initial resettlement policy takes the largest share because it sets the starting point. Economic opportunities follow closely, since jobs sustain growth and attract newcomers. Chain migration and social infrastructure complete the picture by converting initial footholds into enduring communities. Together, these forces create the stable patterns we observe. Now, to connect today's patterns with the past, let's look at historical echoes. Historically, the United States has seen repeated waves of ethnic clustering. German communities took root across the Midwest, while Irish communities concentrated in parts of Massachusetts and other northeastern cities. These patterns were shaped by labor needs, transport links, and community institutions. Today's Somali communities in Minneapolis/St. Paul and Arab American communities in Dearborn reflect similar dynamics, a modern echo of long-standing settlement logics. Let's now focus on how policies and community organizations interact to support integration. Effective integration requires coordinated effort. Resettlement agencies align placements with local capacity. States and cities coordinate housing, education, and healthcare to avoid overburdening systems. Community organizations deliver language instruction, legal assistance, and job support. Public funding, combined with volunteer networks, multiplies impact and responsiveness. When these pieces align, enclaves function as bridges rather than barriers. To put the evolution in context, let's visualize a timeline of growth and policy milestones. This timeline highlights key phases. In the 1970s and 1980s, refugee resettlement frameworks expanded. In the 1990s, Somali arrivals to Minnesota grew notably. The 2000s saw consolidation of community institutions in both Minnesota and Michigan. Through the 2010s, labor market shifts occurred while chain migration continued. In the 2020s, integration services and local partnerships received increasing attention. The sequence shows how institutions and labor demand evolve, yet the core dynamics of placement, jobs, and social networks persist. Now, let's reinforce the essentials with a few key points. These are the essentials. Initial placement is driven by policy and capacity, not by weather preferences. Jobs with low barriers to entry are powerful magnets that sustain growth. Chain migration transforms footholds into stable communities. Enclaves provide lifelines but also present challenges that require attention and resources. Finally, today's settlement patterns echo historical precedents in American immigration. To check comprehension, here's another quick quiz. Second quiz. Why do later arrivals often choose the same cities as earlier arrivals from their community? Option A. Cheapest airfare. Option B. Chain migration and social support networks. Option C. Favorable winter temperatures. Option D. Random chance. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Later arrivals follow trusted pathways to housing, jobs, and cultural institutions, a process known as chain migration. These networks reduce risk and uncertainty for newcomers, making success more likely. To close, let's summarize everything we have covered. To summarize, placement is shaped by policy and local capacity, not by climate preferences. Jobs sustain and expand communities. Social infrastructure converts arrival into belonging. Chain migration reinforces and grows enclaves across generations. These concentrations reveal the economic realities of regional labor markets while preserving cultural resilience. Now let's wrap up with a final message. Thank you for watching. If this video helped connect the dots, please like, share, and subscribe for more evidence-based explorations. Let us know in the comments what you learned, what surprised you, or where you disagree. Your insights make the conversation richer. See you in the next video.